Hey guys, how you doing? So, figured I'd do a review of this danuser intimidator. Cool name, huh? So I've gotten about 60 hours with this machine. So this company was established in the year 1910. I can't remember which city, but it's definitely somewhere in Missouri is where this company was established, and it seems that they continue to be made in America to this day, or at least that's the idea that I caught with a 5-minute glance on the internet. I did not dig deeply. So what is this thing? It's a tree and post puller, right? So it's got these big jaws on the front, and they're operated, as you can see by the hoses, they're operated with hydraulics. So came with your typical skid steer flat face quick connect, as you can see right there. That system's kind of a little bit of a headache sometimes, but that's not anything negative about this implement. That's just how the flat face couplers are, and you don't have to have flat face with this. You can change yours over to the agricultural style if you prefer, which kind of might be easier in some regards, but when it comes to cleaning it, it's sure not easier. I do like the flat face couplers as far as cleaning them, because quick and nice and easy to clean. So I'm just gonna list off some of the positives of this thing and then some of the negatives. All right, so the number one positive attribute to this particular piece of equipment is it completely removes the roots. That's not true with many other methods of dealing with brush and trees. Ain't that right, Iris? Iris, ain't that right, girl? Say yes. Anyway, so if you bush hog or do forestry mulching or stump grinding or many other things, you're still leaving the roots, or at least the vast majority of those roots in the ground, so you're not going to be able to easily till it. So that's the number one positive. It pulls those roots up, baby. All right. Number two, it can be used to pry and dig and pull and push. Even odd things that you wouldn't think it'd be able to do, like grab a chain between these two jaws and pull with a ton of force. So you can do things like stick these deep in the ground and then work the bucket back and forth. Just wiggle until that root pops up. All right. Number three positive attribute: it can remove it can remove fence posts from the ground, and many other things. Really, you can manipulate rocks, all sorts of stuff. But yeah. So your post is rotten and you don't want to sit there and dig an hour to get a rotten post out of the ground? No problem. Use this guy. Just a minute or so, you got her out. All right. Let's see. Number four, positive attribute, which this is kind of a minor one because it's not the main function of this machine. But you can do odd things with this, such as maybe even demolition. You could definitely demolish a house with this thing if you want to. Is it ideal for demolition? No, probably some kind of grapple deal or something on the front would be better for demolition, because you could grab more materials. But you could. I mean, it's strong enough to push and pull and pry in every way. Even up here is a real handy. Right here. These jaws up here are real handy. You grab down there and you pry using the own tree's roots against it. And as you're prying, you push in this direction. And helps you push that tree over. Or anything. Okay. Let's see. Number five positive attribute. It handles larger diameter materials than a bush hog can. Handles larger materials than, a weed eater or anything like that. You can dig up a lot bigger trees. In fact, I could dig up a tree this big if I wanted to. It'd probably take Probably take 15, 20 minutes maybe. Even that real big tree over there, definitely could do it. Would take a good while for that one. But smaller ones like this guy over here, ooh, I could have him up in just a couple minutes. All right, let's see here. Number 6, you can use it to move trees and, like I've mentioned earlier, rocks, other objects. You can use this kind of like a grapple. It's not a great grapple because it's not a grapple, you know? It's not as good at being a grapple as a grapple is, because it's not a grapple. But you can use it kind of like a grapple by grabbing materials with these big old jaws. And you can move a pretty good bunch of, you can pull up a bunch of little trees and pull one up and then just drive into the next one, pull it up, drive into the next one, pull it up. Next thing you know, you've got trees filled in the jaws all the way to the end. 10, 11, 12 little trees you got there, grabbing them all at one time, and you can pull them away and pile them up. And so it can kind of be used as a grapple. Again, not as good as a grapple, but it can be used kind of like one. All right, let's see. So you can use it to cut trees. You can saw trees with it. See these big old teeth right here. Yeah, you can kind of drive into the tree, kind of side swipe it with these jaws, and they're in the front and the back. And yeah, so you can use that to cut trees down. All right, let's see. So the negatives with this guy, it is slower than a bush hog. It's a good bit slower, a lot slower than a bush hog. But again, you bush hog a bunch of little trees down, you can't till that ground. This leaves the ground in a condition where you can till it, you can plant it, you can make a yard out of it after that, whatever you want to do. It makes the ground basically ready to do anything you want to with it, because those roots will be gone. Let's see. The number 2 negative with this machine is dry conditions. In other words, when the soil is dry, it significantly reduces the capacity of how big of a tree you can pull up with it. When that ground gets dry, it gets hard, and you can't pull up as large of a tree when it's dry as you can when the ground has a little bit of moisture in it. Let's see. Number 3, you have to take care to prevent damage to the machine with this. I'm going to add a brush guard to the front of this tractor. This tractor already had a little bit of damage on the front end when I bought it, but I'm gonna put a brush guard up there anyways. When you are pulling trees down, sometimes they try to fall on your canopy back here. If you got an old school tractor that doesn't have any rollover protection, these bars right here, shoot, that might just flop on over and smack you in the head, or honestly could even send you to the hospital. So be careful with it. Try not to damage your machine. Trees want to try to land on the hood and land up here. You just basically learn how to drive it in a manner to where it reduces your chances of that happening. And just be aware of your surroundings and be aware of what you're doing, But yeah, this implement could definitely cause machine damage or injury to operator. So just be careful with that if you guys ever buy or rent one of these. Okay, negative number 4. It requires remote hydraulics, like I just spoke about earlier. This skid steer, flat face, quick connect front hydraulics. If you don't have this on your tractor, definitely take that into consideration before you go buying one of these, because I'll tell you right now, it's going to cost you about $1,500 to have this installed aftermarket. And I will make the quick little side note that if you're buying a tractor and you think you're going to want implements like this, definitely check that option from the factory and buy a tractor that has it on it, or at least negotiate that into the price of buying the machine. It's much cheaper to buy a tractor with the front hydraulics than it is to have it added later. So get you a tractor with those front hydraulics, preferably. A cheap DIY option, I know you can buy a kit for maybe about $500-600 if you want to do this yourself. Is it as good as the factory hydraulics? No, probably not. It's probably not as good if you do it yourself and all you have is rubber hoses and you just kind of zip tight here and there. That's not as good as what the factory would do, right? The factory's going to put in a nice, just route the hoses nicely, and such. So, anyways, just something to think about. Negative number 5, which this isn't really a negative. It's stretching pretty hard to call it a negative. But if you have a subcompact tractor, in other words, your John Deere 1025Rs, which are, just common as nails out there. I mean, they're just so common, everyone has them. If you have a subcompact tractor like a John Deere 1025 or what's the Kubotas, what are they called? B25X, whatever it is. Subcompacts, this is definitely not really for you. Could you use it to pull up really, really, really small things? I don't know. Probably not really. You'd be using up all your capacity just with the implement itself. The implement itself weighs about 700 pounds. And for you guys with those little John Deere 1025Rs, that's pretty much all your capacity right there. So you guys can't use something like this. I'd look elsewhere. I'd look for some other kind of implement. Nothing wrong with little tractors like that. It's just I don't have a purpose for them on this farm. Of course I was tempted to try to get one of those little guys. Why not? They're, a lot cheaper than a big machine. So why not? Well, it just doesn't have the capacity that I need to be able to move hay bales and do hay eventually and all that stuff. So, anyways, I would say I would not buy one of these unless I had a skid steer. It's really great for a skid steer. In fact, if I had a tracked skid steer, skid steer on tracks, I could do a good bit. I would work faster, Could I handle a bigger tree? I wouldn't say that. This can handle just as large of a tree as a skid steer. I just might take a little bit more time. I just don't have quite as much push as a tracked machine does. But I'll tell you right now, with this in 4-wheel drive, I got a pretty good amount of push. So, anyways, I would say I wouldn't get this unless you had a machine that was at least 4 to 5,000 pounds. That's your minimum. I would not get this if I had any smaller machine than that. And this, ballasted and everything, I'm probably sitting at about 7,500 pounds, roughly. And that's just a guess. I could be 500 pounds higher than that or lower. But I'm guessing I'm sitting at about 7,500, how I have her ballasted currently. And this machine handles it great. So, yeah, I would definitely want a 4,000 to 5,000 pound machine and up. And that was negative number 5. Okay, so negative number 6. It does not move material as fast as a grapple does, which I already kind of mentioned that earlier. Yeah, you can use these jaws as a grapple, but it's not as quick as a grapple, because with a grapple you can grab a huge bundle. And this is just, it's not a grapple. Is that even really a negative? Kind of not really, because it's not a grapple. I'm just asking it to do something that it's really not even, it was not a thought when they were designing it. They didn't design it to be a grapple, right? So, anyways. All right, negative number 7. A very large tree takes time. So, for example, that really large tree back there, she's probably about at least 3.5 feet diameter where she intersects with the ground. It would take me a good bit of time to dig up something that big. It might take 30 minutes or an hour or maybe even 2 hours. I wouldn't know until I got into it. But it would take significant time. Now, smaller trees, say 4, 5, 6 inch diameter tree, I can do in just a couple minutes. All right, so the next negative I will say is a grapple is better for filtering material. This is not very efficient for filtering material. So, you know, when someone grabs a bunch of material with a grapple and shakes it, and you see the dirt and the small stuff fall through, and they're filtering out that big stuff. You know, this is not good at doing that. Which, again, it was not designed to do that. So our last negative I'm going to mention today, and I'm not going to dig all the way in there to show you. Uh-oh, Iris. Oh. I'm not going to dig all the way in there, but right in here, there is some Zerk fittings. There's 4 of them. 2 of them are pretty easy to get to. The other 2, they are a headache. So, anyways, that's my review, guys. You know, like, share, and subscribe. All that good jazz. Keep the dirt on your hands and a song in your heart.